Do you have any papers relating to that suit?
I don't think I do. I think they're all went in the dumpster.
Okay. Next group. Let's mark this, and then maybe we can take a lunch, because we'll be done today, so it's on. What? Yeah.
That should be exhibit 30.
And these are the Barry Bonds grand jury minutes. I want to ask you, Mr. Conte, when was the first time you ever received a copy of these? It's the next one.
Mr. Conte.
Okay, here's this back. This is not being entered?
No, it's just there. It was just there. Stay there.
Okay. We initially got the discovery without the grand jury transcripts. I believe sometime in February of 2004. And then later, could have been March or April of 2004 is when they handed over copies of all the grand jury testimonies to date. And they were initially given to Greg Anderson's attorney. And I think thereafter, my attorney at the time, Robert Hawley, got a copy from them. So somewhere around that April of 2004 timeframe.
Okay. When you received them, were they under protective order?
I think he said his attorney received them.
When your attorney received them?
That's a very complicated answer. Do you want me to
What do you
go
know?
into it?
Do you know whether it was at the time under protective order?
That's debatable, and the specific reason is that I never saw the protective order. I never signed the protective order. Troy Ellerman, the guy who was eventually convicted of leaking all the grand jury transcripts, and at the time was Jim Valenti's attorney, never gave us the protective order at any time, and he faxed it in, I guess, or had it couriered in from Sacramento, and he signed it for everybody, including my lawyer and Jim Valenti and myself and his self, and just said Troy Ellerman on behalf of this list of people. So it was a huge oversight on the part of the government, the judge, all parties concerned, that the actual defendants themselves, Jim Valenti and myself, never signed the protective order.
Because, given that, did you consider yourself governed by the protective order?
Well, not really, because I didn't know what it said. I'd never seen it.
Did you disclose any of the Bond grand jury testimony?
No, I did not.
Well, if you weren't covered by the protective order, why not?
Because I didn't even realize what had happened until a year later, when I had terminated my relationship with Bob Hawley and Troy Ellerman. And my new attorney, Mary McNamara, asked me, for a copy of the protective order. And I said, I never got one. I've never seen it. She said, well, you must have. I said, I'm telling you, I never saw it. I never signed it. I don't know what's in it. She sent, at that time, she sent a paralegal to the courthouse. She got a copy of it. This was at some point in March or April of 2005. And she said, oh my God, you're right. She said, we got a copy, and it was signed on everybody's behalf by Troy Ellerman. She couldn't believe that I had never seen, read, or understood anything in the protective order.
What happened then? At that point, did you consider yourself bound by the protective order?
What occurred was that they developed a new protective order, which I did sign. And that was in, and what was covered in the order, and once again, I don't know what I can talk about or not about that document, but it was a different order. So I did sign that together with my two lawyers, Mary McNamara and Ed Swanson, in 2005. And at that point in time, I did consider myself to be bound by the second order, which I believe the order itself is still under seal, as stated.
So you don't believe you can tell me what you identify, what you can. Is there, see, what I'm trying to understand is, I think what your attorney has said is that there's nothing under seal except the sealed order itself?
I guess the question is to the witness, is his understanding.
That's my understanding. I've tried to repeatedly say that over and over, and you seem to think...
What's the basis for your understanding?
I was told that by my criminal attorney. I asked her, and she told me.
And
now, I'm not a lawyer, so I've given...
Well, perhaps during lunch, you can call and find out what the answer to this is, because this makes no sense whatsoever.
Well...
I mean, I don't want to speak to her attorney. Maybe you.
Let me say, you've gotten things on the record, and you don't have it. So apparently, it's not available on Pacer. Okay, so you can't get it. There's some reason.
Victor, there's no pending question.
Was it your understanding? I'm not asking about the order itself. Was it your understanding that you were limited only to not revealing the grand jury testimony, or were you also limited in terms of talking about what you saw in the grand jury testimony?
That sounds like you're asking specifically about this protective order that we don't have.
I'm asking his understanding. Now, if you can direct him not to answer, that's fine, but he's going to be back here.
That's fine, but what are you trying to
I'm trying to find out what he understood vis-a-vis, he was allowed to do vis-a-vis what, in fact, he was disclosing. I mean, I know, for example...
Why don't we start with what he has disclosed?
Well...
Because that presupposes he's disclosed things.
I would rather do it the other way, because he's going to say he hasn't disclosed anything. I want to understand I want to know what his understanding is of what he's prohibited from doing.
As of today.
As of today, right now.
And I think he's answered that clearly on a number of times. I think he said that it's his understanding that the only thing he can't reveal, and you can correct me, Victor, is the context of the protective order that's under seal.
Okay.
That is correct.
All right. There was another protective order which, for example, barred release of the bond transcripts, correct?
Correct.
That was lifted, right?
Correct. They publicly made that available before they vacated the protective order.
And when the protective order was in fact broader than just the bonds testimony, correct?
I don't know that I can talk about that. You keep back to the same...
You're talking about an order with a legal interpretation. Ask him fact questions.
I'm not going to tell you what's in it.
Did the order allow you...
You do what you got to do to get it, but stop asking the same question.
This is absurd, but that's okay. I mean, the notion that the order itself would be sealed where everything underneath it is unsealed makes zero sense. But if we have to come back, we'll have to come back.
Well, listen, why don't you just get it?
Victor, enough.